Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Shashank, and thank you for tuning in to Tackling the World for today's topic of the Democratic presidential nomination. Today we are joined by two special guests, Annabelle Ali and Shreya Golakoti, who are both currently seniors in high school, and they're going to be sharing their perspectives on the nomination process. So it's my pleasure to welcome Annabelle and Shreya. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
for
good.
sure. I'm glad you guys could come on.
It's not like we have anything
So,
else to do.
yeah, we're all stuck in quarantine, so I guess kind of make the
Yeah.
most of our time.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
So, yeah. So, just to start off, I want to give you guys a couple minutes to just explain your stance on the nomination process, what you think about it. So you
Hmm.
guys can go ahead. Who wants to start?
Annabelle, you can
Um,
go.
all right. Okay. Well, I think it kind of has to do, okay, there's a lot to do with the nomination process. I think we all understand that. But
Uh huh.
ultimately, like I've come to learn through I guess my years of like studying this and through my years of just like blind research is that like it's really not fair and there's a ton of flaws. A big part of it has to do with the elitism behind it. Starting off
Hmm.
with like the biggest part and the part that a lot of people tune into, which is the debates. Instead of learning a
Hmm.
lot about like any candidate's policies and ambitions, we're like constantly stuck hearing them say like flashy one-liners, poking fun at each other. And it really just resembles like reality TV rather than a way to connect to the
Yes.
American people. And that's like a
Hmm.
big thing I've seen. And it's even incredibly ironic that like these same debates were made for the purpose to connect to the American people, and yet they're hardly ever viewed by the working class because they're working and can't put the time out of their day to like watch candidates bicker on a large stage.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your perspective.
Mhm.
Sure, you want to go ahead next?
Yeah. So what I noticed about the nomination process is a lot about like how it's way more corrupt than we'd like to see that it is.
Mhm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
like it's less about what people want and more about what organizations want and more about like what like big like parties and things like that, like the DNC, like because like this time we didn't really have to see a lot that has to happen with like the Republican Party specifically because there's
Mm-hmm.
already a Republican candidate. But like
Right.
with the Democratic Party this year especially, and like last year as well, what we saw was that like they clearly preferred specific people, and like behind the scenes like other people were shut down constantly, and we could see that with like what happened with Bernie last year, and like specifically this year what comes to mind is like Andrew Yang, and like
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
how the party specifically like mistreats candidates, and like information is withheld from citizens. So before we even get to like the debates and things like that, the organization in the beginning itself is bad.
For
So
sure.
it's like primaries, the way they're set up, it's like a lot of the time voting is inaccessible to the people. So it's like people are unable to express their opinions in order to actually nominate somebody.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for your perspective, and we're gonna go into the list of questions that I've already have. And just for the
Mm-hmm.
listeners there, my goal with all of these podcast episodes is to ask our guests the questions, and then they might these questions may not reflect my view on the presidential nomination, but that's not the point. It's to bring out the views of the guests. So these questions you may think are this or that, but they probably sometimes may not reflect what I believe in. So it's just a quick little disclaimer there. So let's start off right away with I know both of you guys said that in some part of your introduction that the nomination process isn't really that fair,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
in order for the nomination process to be more fair, do you think that instead of delegates voted, it should be votes of actual people, like the popular vote, for instance, because many people
Yes.
criticized Hillary Clinton last year for winning the nomination due to inside access with delegates, while in
Mm-hmm.
reality, she actually won with 3.7 million more people, so more popular votes over Bernie Sanders.
Mhm.
What's your views on that?
Shreya, do you want to take it away?
Um, yes. Okay. So first I will say is that like I don't like when it comes to like the Hillary versus Bernie situation, I don't
Mm-hmm.
like she should have been like not she should have been, but like I could see why she was criticized for inside access to the DNC.
Mm.
Like that's bad regardless of whether she had like more people supporting her in the first place or not. But I think
Mhm.
this year, when it specifically bugged me about like the delegate voting and things like that, is when Bernie was originally the front runner, and if he didn't win like a supermajority, then Biden could have challenged and gotten the
Mhm.
nomination, even if more people voted for Bernie.
Uh-huh.
And so, like a situation like that possibly happening, that didn't end up playing out at all after like Super Tuesday and stuff like that. But if
Mhm.
that type of situation could have happened in the nomination process, even the possibility of that is like complete BS to me. Because I
Mhm.
mean, like a majority of the people clearly voted for a specific candidate, and the ability of like the party to be able to like give it to a different person is like wrong. That's not what should be happening, because like the people have clearly spoken for a different person. So the
Mhm.
idea that like a supermajority is necessary to remove the influence of delegates is like, it shows that like there is still a lot higher influence rather than just what people want, which is what a nomination should be.
Because I know last year Bernie Sanders, he had a lot of influence in the party. So he
Mm-hmm.
specifically changed a lot of the rules relating to superdelegates and really cut them down by a lot,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to make the process more fair, which makes sense because he was, obviously given not the best chance, and he was, kind of looked against at the moderate Democrats in the party.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely see your viewpoint from there. Annabelle?
Yeah, so I think kind of maybe like going towards like the first question, which was like about the process. And I've said
Mm-hmm.
this like over and over again, like I think just throughout, but like I strongly believe that a truly democratic system is to allow your vote to be your vote. And instead of like jumping through the hoops and like the delegate process and even in the electoral college, everyone's vote in the process should count as one vote instead of a
Mm-hmm.
part of a bigger process, which is what we have right now. And
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I understand why there are delegates which try to achieve like a flawed way of giving states equal representation, but I think it's pretty clear, especially in the last couple of years, how flawed that delegation process really is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like
I mean it's true because like especially with like I mean you can say the same thing about the electoral college. I mean the reason why it was
mm,
Yeah.
founded was because it was to give like the smaller states more of a voice. But
exactly.
but then people don't realize that your electoral college votes are given to a state based off of the state's population. So if you
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
have less people in your state, you're still getting less representation than California, which is not equal.
And like the
Exactly.
But where
fact
you
that,
do get equal representation is in the Senate, where every state gets 2 senators. So I feel like we could possibly do away with the whole electoral college, and possibly even with the delegates in the party.
Mm.
mm-hmm, like the
And then
idea of winning the electoral college and not like the popular vote and still like getting the presidency is like not good. Like
mind-boggling.
should not be happening.
Hmm.
A
Yeah.
majority is a majority.
Mm.
Hmm.
And then even
Definitely.
touching on the part where you said about like Hillary Clinton, for example, especially in like 2016. So like
Hmm.
Hillary Clinton, she won the popular vote as well as the most delegates for the DNC. And during
Hmm.
the 2016 election, I was also rooting for Bernie, but Hillary won. And while she has done like a majority of questionable things, especially like getting insider information with the DNC, getting
Hmm.
3.7 million more votes because of insider connections to the DNC doesn't really seem plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what I said was like that many people criticize like Hillary Clinton for winning the nomination because
Right.
she had like that access to those delegates.
Mm-hmm.
But like what I'm saying in like I guess this is kind of in support of Clinton is that like while people did criticize her for winning because she had that connections within the party, in
Mm.
reality, I mean, if you look at the popular vote side, she actually won that in that way too because she got 3.7 million people more people voted for Clinton than they did for Sanders.
Yeah.
Right.
I will
Mhm.
say, like, obviously it can't just be about delegates and stuff, but she did have an unfair advantage, especially when it came to like the amount of connections she had.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
Like, I didn't pull up any specific links on this, but I've read a lot about like the way she misused a bunch of her connections and stuff like that.
Mm.
Mhm.
And I guess like I don't have anything to support it as of right now, but that could be a reason that like, yeah, she won. She still did win, but that doesn't mean it was like a rightful win.
Right.
Yeah, I mean maybe during the debate she was given more favorable questions to
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
win over the people. So yeah, I guess that does make sense. I mean, relaying off of that, like, so as you know, everybody who's in or everybody who was in the nomination process, they were mostly just really old people, male or female.
Sure.
And do you think that there should be a limit to how old somebody can be to run for president? Because as time goes on, our generations change and new ideas come into fruition. Like we know with the whole Bernie Sanders thing about being more liberal and more progressive, but that's not what many moderate old people in the Democratic Party like or would like. So do you think that there should be a limit on the age that somebody can be to run for president?
I mean, like, this is a tricky question because, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, naturally, people are going to be voting for the person that they believe is going to be the best candidate, I think, regardless of age. But, like,
Yeah.
scientifically looking at it, like, older age does mean, like, a decline in a lot of cognitive ability and cognitive skills. And whereas, like, socially, like what you kind of said, like, people argue that, like, older candidates are less likely to, like, vouch for new policies, new technological, like, change and advances, and are more traditionalist.
Mm-hmm.
And like I understand the fact that like a lot of the candidates that we had were really old, and that can even be said for like Bernie, the one person that I really did support. But then again, like going on both sides, there are a numerous amount of old candidates, and it can't really be said that like just because Bernie is super old, he should be taken out. Because again, like
Mm-hmm.
first of all, Biden was 1 year younger than Bernie. Trump is 5 years younger than him. And that while like I
Yeah.
do think there should be an age limit, meaning like I mean, I don't think a 90 plus old person should be running, but then again, I doubt a 90-plus-year-old would be actually running.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. That's true. That's true. I mean, I would
that's
kind of
what
be
I was
shocked if
gonna
there was a
say.
90-year-old person running.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't
Yeah.
think there needs to be a limit in place because like the people who are genuinely too old enough to run, as in it would like be harmful for their health and stuff like that, are not
Mhm.
choosing to run in the first place.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think
piggybacking on, like the limit. Oh, wait, sorry. You can go and finish if you
no,
want to
you're
say something.
fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay. So, on the whole age thing, let's talk about the voting age. So, as you know, there's a lot of people who think that the voting age should be 16 years for just the general elections. And
Mm.
so my personal opinion is that I don't think 16-year-olds are well politically educated to know their stance or to know who to vote for to become the leader of the biggest and most influential nation in the world. So I feel like, if anything, the voting age should be increased a little bit than decreased at all. Like I would rather vote for it being increased than to be decreased. Because then, older in more further in life, you get a better understanding of life because you're working, you're doing this, so you know what you want. But many people maybe think that the voting age should be reduced to 16 for the presidential nomination process. So in the Republican and Democratic Party, maybe 16-year-olds and above should get the chance to display their voices through voting. What do you guys think about that?
I like to start off by saying I was upset that I couldn't vote because I didn't turn 18 until after the primaries. So like that kind of sucks for me because I like to be politically educated. I like to do my research and things like that.
Sure.
So it sucks that I was
Yeah,
like a
me
couple
too.
months off.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't think the voting age should be increased just because like we're especially like now that I've like gotten my financial aid information back from schools and things like that, like there is constantly being legislation passed that affects me like right now. Like especially like people that are about to go into college, they're about to take in like thousands of dollars of debt. And every day there are like choices being made about that kind of money that affects us. And I think it's important that like we have an ability to represent ourselves and express ourselves when it comes to matters like that. So I agree, when you're working and stuff like that, you obviously have more experience in like big important matters. But to say that when you're younger, you won't have that same experiences is incorrect because like we're still making major decisions that technically like I don't have a say in right now.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Which
but okay, so as far as I know, so I know a good amount of people from school, especially that are very well politically educated and they know what they're talking about. I mean, you two guys, for instance. I mean, you guys know a lot about politics, and I trust what you guys say. But a lot of 16-year-olds, right? I mean, sure, I agree. There are a good chunk of people who know what they're talking about, who know what they're doing. But at the age of 16, you get a big majority of the people, they would not know at all, who they would vote for. They would probably just go in and vote for somebody they think, or, jump on a bandwagon, for instance. Like if their friends are talking about a certain candidate, they might just vote for them, even though their views don't, reciprocate with them. So like, I mean, I think, 18 is a great age, to be able to vote, but not everybody who's younger. So like, wait, are you saying that it should be reduced to 16? Or you think you're just fine where it is?
I mean,
I'm saying,
like,
Annabelle, you go.
oh, okay. Well, I was basically, so like answering your question, like kind of looking at it on both sides, like sure, 16-year-olds can be swayed, but like let's look at the flip side. Like people who are 80, 90 plus, they also have like a lot of them can have incredibly traditionalist values that don't necessarily represent or do the best for like the country's total whole. And like when we look at it, like maybe I don't necessarily have strong opinions on whether it should be lowered or not, but I do believe that it shouldn't be raised because a lot of policies are going to be affecting, and like the future president and what they're going to be enacting is going to be affecting mostly the younger generations. So it's important to get their voices represented. And like answering that question again of like, can they be swayed? I don't think that's necessarily unique to 16-year-olds, because that can be said about every person. Anyone can get swayed, like from media bias to like the person they hear on the street. So I just think that sure, maybe 16-year-olds don't have like the necessary cognitive ability to like overcome that supposed peer pressure, but I don't think that that should be a definitive way to stop them from voting.
So
I would
oh no, go, it's fine, go ahead.
Okay, I wouldn't be against it being reduced just because I feel like, okay, what I will say though is we can't just all of a sudden reduce the voting age, voting age requirement. Like there should be a systematic change towards more political education earlier on. Because it's like a serious problem that we like see children as like, not children, sorry, like teenagers as people who have like no idea what they're talking about and have no connection to the government, because like everybody every day is continuously affected by policies that are being put in place right now. So the idea that we think that they're like not educated enough or don't choose to know about that is a problem in the first place. So I think if we start out by introducing more like political education earlier on, that reducing the voting age requirement should follow that.
Yeah. So, okay, so like, let me rephrase this question in a different way. So let's just say, they're not willing to, just the US in general is not willing to change the general election. So when you actually vote for a president. So how about reducing it for the presidential nomination process? So like when the party selects their candidate, like should 16-year-olds be able to, cast their vote towards a specific candidate?
I mean, it's kind of already happening though. Like we're seeing in like there's multiple cities that have like state elections are now open to 16 and 17-year-olds. Even for the presidential nominee, they were debating on having, I'm not sure if it was actually in place, but they were debating on having 17-year-olds who are turning 18 by the presidential election to be allowed to vote. So like there's it slowly is happening. And again, obviously it would be better suited that like we have like our schools teach more like political knowledge and be more like more suited towards that, because like again, and I'm probably going to mention this like later on, but like politicians are constantly deified and we kind of see them and put them on like a higher ground than us, because like politics and because like legislation seems so far away from us and we can't really interact with that. But like changing that mindset and showing that like politics can truly be for everyone because it is affecting you the most is the best way. And like having younger people vote is the best way to get them more interested.
And continuing on the whole voting thing, we both parties, Republican and Democratic, when they have votes, they do it in like little chunks. So like one day, a couple states, whatever. And then we have Super Tuesday, and then we have similar things to Super Tuesday going on. So do you think that we should keep that same system? Because there are a lot of flaws with that system, because states can basically decide when they want to hold primaries. Yeah. And that could give one state more influence than the other, depending on when they hold their primaries. So instead, do you think that we should have a big period of just a lot of debates, and then debates end, and then we have one day, just like the regular election, for everybody to go cast their votes for primaries?
Mm, well, the thing with one day though, and this can be said for like the normal, like the big election, for the presidential election, and for even the primaries, having only one day is really inaccessible just because, and I'm gonna say this over and over again, like a lot of people can't take the time out of like their day to vote on that one day, right? Like, especially like
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the American population, which is the working class, they are stuck working or taking care of their family. So they just can't put in that effort for this one day to vote. And so like a
But
lot of different countries have placed like week-long voting periods or even like a voting day holiday. So if
mhm.
like in order to answer that question, we need to make sure that voting is first more accessible to the people. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of where I stand.
Because I mean, because regardless of what state it happens in, everybody only has one day. Like
Right.
the day just depends on when they hold their primaries. Like for Super
Right.
Tuesday, it's only one day where Minnesotans get to go and cast their vote, but it's not like they
Correct.
have an extra long week. So like
Hmm.
instead of just splitting it up, which could cause different things happening in the news regularly to quickly change people's minds, because it's all a political tactic. Like
Yeah.
if Sanders was still running, like Joe Biden could say something right after a primary, and then in the next like whatever primary he just wins a bunch of delegates because he was able to get something and sort of convince other people that he's not the right fit president. And it's all a political game, but you could stop all those games from happening if you just have one day to, just dedicated countrywide for just primaries. And obviously I do agree that people don't have the time, and I'm always in favor of making the voting day a day off for all businesses, everything. Just give people that day to just go out and vote.
Hmm. Um,
Yeah.
what I will say is, for like, should all voting take place on one day? I think I don't know how possible that is, especially because the process we have for the nominations is that like people can drop out throughout the process of the primaries. And like,
Uh-huh.
so to have it all on one day means like there's no way to like predict or like to analyze how like in what direction it's going, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And I feel like
Yeah,
that
that
has
makes sense.
like consequences and benefits. And like some of the benefits are like I specifically remember like seeing with like Biden versus Bernie is that like Bernie would like sell out like a stadium and like there would be no articles about it and it'd be like Biden
Mm,
surges to fourth place or whatever. Like a
yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
like the way the media played it is like throughout the primary, even when he was like when Bernie was the front runner, he didn't get nearly as much attention as Biden did. So like
Yeah.
the media was able to influence like throughout the process of voting.
Hmm.
So like influence
And
shifted.
yeah, and speaking on debates and influences, so we've seen lots of debates, and I've personally seen every single Democratic nomination debate so far.
Hmm.
um and some candidates are not given a fair chance. I mean, that's what I think. But do you guys think that all candidates are given a fair chance in expressing their views? Because as Andrew Yang, which we talked about just a little
Yeah.
bit ago, he wasn't given enough talk time. Like he would usually only get less than 10 minutes per debate, and
Yeah.
debates are
Hmm.
like what, 1 to like almost 2 hours long, and
Hmm.
he only gets 10 minutes of talk time. So do you think that candidates are given a fair shot?
Well,
Well, when Annabelle and I start at the sentence
say the
the
same
exact
thing.
way. Okay, Annabelle, you can go.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I touched on this at the beginning of the podcast, but like short answer, no. But like long answer is that like these debates aren't even centered around policies and views anymore. And so
Hmm.
much that like even like when I started and began to watch the debates, like I kind of realized that a lot of the interviewers don't even ask the right questions. I remember
Yeah.
like one debate, and I was like even like searching this up, like the interviewer was Lester Holt, I
Hmm.
believe, and he basically
Yes.
interviewed candidates and asked them like which of them support to keep private insurance, which had nothing to do with any of their policies, rather than asking like things along the lines of like how to fix the broken system that's leaving millions of people like uninsured. And so
Yeah.
like debates are like constantly even framed around misconceptions, even from the news, like what we were kind of touching on, and how like it's even led to many people to demonize socialism, which has affected people's stance on Bernie as well. So like in like I guess like the answer really is that like no, all the debates aren't fair. And we've even talked about this, like, first of all, Andrew Yang and MSNBC, and even because the media
Hmm.
outlets have so much control. So ultimately, it's
Mm-hmm.
like we kind of need to reform the process and also even reform like the way we conduct debates before we kind of move forward.
So should the debate process, instead of allowing TV networks to run these debates, because those can be very biased towards one candidate,
Hmm.
do you think that they should be run by the DNC instead, in
I mean,
collaboration with with TV networks? So the DNC provides the question askers, the hosts basically, and the TV networks just broadcast them.
to say that TV networks are biased towards candidates and the DNC isn't would be wrong.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
if we're trying to eliminate bias, you can't take out like one bad thing and introduce the other bad thing. So
Yeah.
I feel like if we're going to talk about bringing debate to the people more, like the questions should be coming from the people,
Right.
Okay, I
if
see.
that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
obviously we don't have anybody else besides TV networks to broadcast the debate. Like no
Mhm.
one else like can show them off, like broadcast them obviously, but like
Mhm.
the questions should be coming from the people that are affected by the answers. Because
Yeah. So
I
like,
would have questions about policies and no one would ask those questions, and I have no ability to like call a candidate and ask them.
mhm. So like, would you be in favor of something where each debate is about one specific topic? And I mean, I wouldn't call it debate. Let's just say like a Q&A session with each
Sure.
candidate. It's like 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours long. And there's a whole audience there. And each of those Q&A sessions is only about one specific topic.
Mhm.
So then
I'd be
we
okay with
allow
that.
those people who are interested in that topic to come on and ask their questions to the candidate himself, him or herself, right on stage, so that they can be confronted and asked questions. What do you guys think of that?
I mean,
I'd be
I'd be
okay with
down
that.
for that. Yeah,
You be
because
down
I
for
think
that?
it
Mm-hmm.
just, as long as we focus more on the policies, like that's the biggest thing. Because like the biggest way we can connect to our future candidates and connect to those people is like through the debates. Because sure we can search, sure we can search up their policies and all that stuff, but ultimately like the biggest way is like how they interact with it and how they interact with the questions. And even like going back to like kind of the screen time thing, like it's kind of shown that like first of all like the debates are definitely more about just kind of like making fun of each other and focusing more on, oh, I'm better than him because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm saying funny one liners that are going to make you want to vote for me rather than
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
things that actually matter. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah, I'd be down
because
for that.
yeah, because I know, especially like when, Annabelle, when you, me, and Jasmine went to go see Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
right? Like that was, I mean, that was an awesome thing. Like just meeting the candidate and being able to listen to them and
Right.
talk about their policies give you a better understanding of who they are and why you should vote for, why we should vote for them. So I
Exactly.
definitely, I get what you're saying, because we were there and we recognized and we felt that interaction. So yeah.
Mhm.
Shreya, do you have anything to
Mhm.
say about this?
Yeah, and a lot like when Annabelle was talking about like, the one-liners and like looking better than other candidates, like I genuinely think that the debates Annabelle and I have at our tournaments are way more structured and formal and informational than any of the
Exactly.
Democratic debates I've seen this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Like a
sure.
lot of it is like trying to get buzzwords out and like trying to become like Twitter famous, which
Mm-hmm.
again is like inaccessible to the people and doesn't address any actual problem.
And it isn't even a
Yeah, and
debate
like,
to begin with. True. Like because
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
like they're really putting the word like debate as like some sort of like gimmick when in reality it's just another almost like publicity stunt.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all these campaigns are focusing on the best comeback or like the best line to say during a debate, than
Mm,
actually
Mhm.
figure out how to express their views to the public.
exactly.
um and that kind of, it defeats the whole purpose of the debates. The whole purpose of the debates is to give you information about, the candidates, and all they're doing is just throwing punchlines and trying to, like you guys said, be funny and get Twitter famous.
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely. So, moving on from the debates, let's talk about the candidates. So, what are your specific opinions on Joe Biden? I'm sure Annabelle, either one of you guys can go first. Like, what are your views on him? Do you guys like him?
I do not like Joe Biden.
Same here.
Not a fan. I guess it has to do with okay, the moral righteousness of the DNC and like the Democratic Party in general. Like, if you put like Joe Biden next to Donald Trump, I would not be able to tell you which one is better. Like, to me, there is no answer for that.
Exactly.
Because I mean, when Trump was first nominated and then he was elected, like the things that set me off about him were like the way he would address minorities, like I guess trigger warning, like his rape allegations and like things like that. And I see those same exact things when I search up Joe Biden's name. So I don't understand in what way he's a better person.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Annabelle?
Yeah, go ahead.
You have something to say? Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I think just like, I guess kind of piggybacking off of that, because first of all, agree with everything you've said. But also I guess like another reason why I don't like him is because once again, and sure this can be like highly debated against, but like once again, like first of all, the biggest thing is that Joe Biden has committed acts of sexual assault with like the Tara Reid case. But then of course, as like history has shown, it seems that it's okay to have those qualities to be a president. But even like looking at the policies, like they aren't benefiting the working class at all, which he's like constantly saying, I'm fighting for you. Like he wants to cut Social Security, he wants to raise the retirement age, he wants to eliminate cost of living increases, and he's even advocated for cutting Medicare. So I mean, it's clear to see that he really doesn't have the people in mind, which is very it was like a mirror image to Trump, as like what Shreya said.
So, like, as you guys may know, Bernie Sanders holds, I mean, out of the Democratic Party, 1/3 of party members support Bernie Sanders over Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden has the majority, but Biden knows for a fact that if he wants any chance at winning the election, he needs the support of progressives in his party, and and that 1/3 is extremely important to win, because Trump has the whole full pie. Like, he has everything. Like, there's no splits, no nothing. So he has a bigger base technically right now than Biden does in order to win the election. And, we saw that as soon as, Sanders dropped out, Biden on his website came out with new plans that are more progressive, that are more, attractful to the younger generation, which Sanders controls. Basically, he has a biggest influence over them. And Sanders dropped out, and later on he endorsed Biden, and he said that we're gonna use Joe Biden to take down President Trump. And we know that for sure Sanders is going to have a huge influence over the platform this year. So like, I mean, at the end of the day, don't you guys think it's better to just vote for Biden instead of just not voting at all? Because, Biden's trying to slowly adapt those progressive ideas. And now, since Sanders is a big politician in the party, he will have lots of influence, especially in Congress, to pass these legislative goals.
I mean, like, okay, first of all, I'm not here to like dictate anyone's choice on who they should vote for, but like to those Bernie supporters that are in the same position as me and kind of disappointed that, I mean, one, he didn't drop out, but he stopped campaigning, was that like, please, for the love of God, still vote. Because I understand that like it's hard, because Bernie was truly a candidate that I was proud of, with his policies, his past, and even those plans for the future. And he like wanted a country that was united and truly fought for the people. However, like we just can't stop voting because, one, again, like I'm saying, Bernie didn't drop out, and this is a huge wide misconception. Just because he stopped campaigning and said he stopped campaigning, he will still be on the ballot. Two, you can write anyone in if you don't want to vote Biden. And also, like, three, I understand that Biden seems like a close mirror image to Trump, but for the sake of the future, we still got to vote. If like the Republican Party continues to win, they're going to be pushing out and going to push cuts on Social Security, Medicare, They're going to try and take out Ruth Bader Ginsburg out of court. And then even like socially, looking at like the social climate of our country, we're going to continue to see like this hateful rhetoric. Like talking a little bit about like the Muslim community after Trump got elected.
Mm-hmm.
We saw like, first of all, my masjid was bombed. There's still constantly graffiti on multiple mosques. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of them do say like vote Trump or Trump is going to kick you out. So like I can only speak for obviously my community, but like that hateful rhetoric can be seen throughout many other minority groups. And if we want
Mm-hmm.
to stop that or at least like relieve that, we need to continue to vote and continue to have our voices heard.
So,
Yeah.
so like as you said, a lot of the Bernie Sanders supporters are what you may call stubborn, meaning like they want their true candidate to win, and they would rather vote for nobody if Bernie's not gonna run for the election. And some would argue that doing what Bernie's doing may not be possible to a certain extent until like a new generation fully comes in, because I mean, history has shown that moderates in the Democratic Party, especially, have the most impact and usually become the nominee. Like, I mean, the whole field this year was basically just a bunch of copycats of Bernie Sanders trying to please the progressives when still the majority of the party is still moderate. And some people may think that having Joe Biden be president and slowly implement progressive ideas with the help of Sanders and his base, instead of trying to have Bernie become president and hope that he can pass progressive legislation. Because as you know, there aren't a ton of progressives in the party, and maybe the Democratic Party might not even pass any progressive legislation that Bernie Sanders puts up because it won't appeal to the moderates. What do you guys think about that?
Okay, what I will say is that like I don't know about progressive legislation and stuff like that, but like I had the confidence in Bernie to like advocate for the legislation I want to see in the government. I do not have that same confidence in Biden. Like I cannot convince myself that 100% like with fact that Biden will like try to close the camps at the border. But I can tell myself that when it comes to Bernie. So like I get what people say about moderate candidates like being able to bring more change, but I can't guarantee that moderate candidates will actually want that change. Like they want
because
less
politicians.
change.
Yeah,
So,
because
like,
they say, Sorry,
I get why. No, yeah, you're fine. Like I get why people would not want to vote for Biden. Like I understand why. But like going back to what Annabelle said is I just like when it comes to the rhetoric associated with each candidate, like I just keep thinking back to like when Trump got elected and like the graffiti in like our school bathrooms. Like we made BuzzFeed articles. Like that was our school that did that. Like this is people that was like people at one point we saw in the hallways that did that. So like to have that kind of rhetoric associated with one candidate, and I think we're lucky enough to say that like it's not, the rhetoric is nearly not as bad when it comes to Biden. So like I like hate myself for doing this almost, but like I'm just picking the lesser of the two evils. And like I get why some people would even say that it's not less evil. But to me, like, and like the way I've seen things play out in my life, I think one is less evil to me, and I would be able to vote. And like I would I guess advocate for that, but I would understand why other people would not vote for Biden and would still vote for Bernie. Because of like, as I was talking about, like the confidence and like the legislation advocacy and things like that, those kind of things, I can't even say like with surety that Biden will do things like that.
Yeah.
And that's important to people.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, like me and Shrey are both trying to say that like, regardless of both sides or whichever candidate that you want, just continue to vote because it is such a privilege that we do get to vote. I know many of my family members can't because they're not citizens. I know many people just can't because they don't have accessibility to do so. So if you have that privilege, just use it because it's a gift, truly.
Yeah.
Like,
and
express the opinion you have.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be our
especially
opinion.
to the listeners. Yeah, I mean, like especially to the listeners. So, ever since I started the podcast, I saw my analytics and see who are the most people who are watching, and it's people above the age of 18 and less than 30 years. And honestly, like what I would say is that use use what you've been given by the government to voice your opinions. Like take the time and go out and vote. Some people, I mean, most of you guys might think that your vote is useless or not worth it, but trust me, when all those people who think their votes are useless go out and vote, you guys make a huge difference.
Exactly.
So
Mm-hmm.
to everybody who's listening, go out and vote this coming November. You know, be politically knowledgeable, do your research, and go out and vote for the candidate that you believe in.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, so moving on, let's talk about influence of party members. Now, as you guys know, before Bernie Sanders dropped out, former President Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders had many calls talking about the future of the party, and trying to, and you know, Obama especially trying to convince Sanders to drop out and unify the party. Because as you know, I think last year Bernie didn't endorse Clinton till I think it was July. I think it was July or something like that. Like he stuck on until July before he endorsed Clinton. So how much influence do you think that, you know, former presidents like Obama, for instance, should have on the nomination process?
I mean, like, I don't think the former president should hold a lot of power when endorsing candidates. However, like, history has shown that, like, when a president endorses a candidate, the people want to agree and are swayed by that decision. Like, when Obama endorsed Hillary, for example, she gained thousands or even millions of new votes, which showed the power the president truly holds and based on popularity. And like, can I answer, like, can we see a change in this anytime soon? I don't think so, because again, like, politics and politicians are often deified and like seen as like on this higher ground and untouchable to normal citizens. So like when a president endorses a candidate, it's highly likely that many people are going to agree solely because of his title, former president. And like this has had a lot to do with how our country views politics rather than the amount of power the president holds, I think.
Yeah.
Going off of that, like when Biden ran ads with Obama in them, like before, like a lot of the primaries in the South, like especially the South Carolina primary, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like just like Biden just being associated with Obama, like got him thousands of more votes.
Exactly.
And like that's icky. That's very, very icky to me because like association does not mean you are a good candidate.
Yeah. And you know, we saw during the camp. Yeah, go. Sorry.
No, yeah, you're fine. It's just that like it's impossible to remove that influence almost. Because like how are you supposed to like erase that image from people's minds? You can't really do that. But it shows a lot about like how much like we deify people and how much we see like influence and association over policy and information.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we know that, you know, a lot of candidates during the campaign trail with their ads, they used Obama's image a lot of the times. I mean, every candidate used Obama's image, like a picture with him or them, you know, passing legislation together, talking about something just to remind the voters of the good old Obama days, as they might call it, you know, trying to sway people saying that, you know, if you vote for me, we're going to bring back the good old Obama days. And nobody's a better example than Joe Biden. He mentions Obama like
every other
many times during debates. Every other sentence he's like, oh, it was me
when I was with President Obama.
Exactly. Yeah, it was me and President Obama who did that, not you. Like, you know, you hear all this stuff going on, and you know, Joe Biden, you know, famously was like, oh, I'm going to win this nomination, you know, on my own. I mean, you're not winning it on your own. You're not winning this on your own because you're using Obama's image to basically garner votes.
Exactly.
So, like, how do you guys feel about candidates using a former president to, you know, get votes?
That's icky.
I mean, yeah, like both sides have done it by like putting the former president in their ads, like you said, like Warren, Bloomberg, of course, Biden, and like across the country, when even like Obama hasn't even directly endorsed anyone. And so
also, oh, you go, finish.
Oh. But like personally, like having candidates use Obama doesn't make me go, yes, I need to vote for them because Obama said so. And like that's because like in my personal opinion, I don't believe Obama was the best president. But again, whoever was, like, I mean, okay, come on. Like Obama has endorsed numerous drone strikes in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and that doesn't exactly make him a hero in my eye. And so when I'm
Yeah.
looking at candidates, and this can be said for a lot of people, but like when I'm looking at their policies, their past, and what they want in the future, that's what I want to see in a president, not necessarily, oh, Obama endorsed me, therefore you should vote for me.
Yeah.
Like the good old Obama days were not good. Like they were not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there were like those were better days than they are now in some aspects. But like to like glorify his presidency is inaccurate because
Mhm,
he was not good all the time.
for sure.
I
So
mean,
like
because the
association with
reason
him
why,
isn't always good.
uh-huh.
And people
I mean,
like to look over that fact.
yeah, I mean, like the whole reason they're doing it is, I mean, we obviously know that Biden is winning the nomination because of the African American vote. Like he has huge support because he was Obama's vice president, and African Americans are definitely more likely to vote for somebody who they really believed in during the 2000 election, which was President Barack Obama.
Yeah.
So, that's mainly the reason why, Biden's winning right now. And Sanders wasn't able to do as much of a better job at convincing African American voters, which is
That's
why
like,
I feel like
oh,
is one of
sorry.
the big reasons he didn't, lead
And like
in the delegate votes.
that's problematic because if you look at the two candidates, like regardless of associations and things like that, Biden has said like numerous things that come off as incredibly racist. Like he's worked
Yeah.
with
Mhm,
people that have like been outright racist, and he's like paraded policies that have been outright racist. Like
exactly.
he is not a good person. But like on the other hand, if you like look into what Bernie's done, he hasn't done any of that. And like
Mm-hmm.
the fact that just the association with like former President Obama has gotten Biden that far when he has done nothing with like actual legislation or policies to help those
Yeah.
people, like showcases one of the biggest problems we have.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Like
going back to the
influence
idea,
over policy.
yes.
Yeah. Annabelle, you want to add something?
Oh, I think just like exactly like I mean Shrey already said most of it already, but like going
Yeah.
back to it, like we've kind of like throughout this entire podcast we've kind of touched on it, but the fact is that like we just need to make policies more accessible because right now a lot of politicians, especially Biden, are using the fact that like influence and using also media, they're using that as a tool and a tactic to get voters, and that's
Uh-huh.
exactly how they're winning and using the system against people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do definitely agree with that. This is going to be our final question.
Okay.
Maybe kind of controversial. I don't know. This is a question that I've seen on the news a lot. People speaking. I don't know if you guys have.
Okay.
But here it is. Is it important for Biden to choose a woman for his vice president or pick the right person for the job? Biden has pledged or promised that he would choose a woman to be his vice president. But do you think it's better for him to choose a woman as vice president to, influence females in the country to take up these bigger positions? Or do you
Um,
think Biden should choose the right person to fill in the job?
Okay. So, first of all, women representation is really important, and that's what a lot of women, including myself, are fighting for. However,
Uh-huh.
a lot of women who are advocating for this aren't saying that pick a random woman off the street and place her as a VP. We're simply saying that there are a ton of women politicians that have copious amounts of experience that are underestimated and underrepresented. Um, and so if Biden believes that a male candidate is better suited to be his VP, then by all means, that's his choice. However,
Mm-hmm.
the right person for the job and whoever is best for the country's success is all that matters. And also, the VP can be a woman and also the right person for a job, and it isn't a one out or one in scenario.
Yes. And
Honestly,
what I was
I like
implying was like if you were like given a like because Biden promised he would choose a woman for his vice president, but if he
Mm,
was given the hard choice when he has a really good politician who is a woman, who is looked at and admired by lots of people around the world, but then you also have another man who is probably even better fit for the job as some political analysts might think. Like, do you think it's still important for him to choose a woman to become his vice president over the man, even though he might be a better influence on his campaign?
first of all, I think it's gross that he pledged to pick like a woman like vice president in the beginning itself because like it
exactly.
shows that he cares more about getting women to vote for him than like
Mm-hmm.
picking like an increasing like representation when it comes to our government.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
like I don't think the problem is who he's picking. I think the problem is he's like making it a political choice. He's like he's like a
Mhm.
campaigning tactic,
Yeah.
which is gross.
Definitely, for sure.
So like the fact that we're asking ourselves like asking this question in the first place shows that he does not care about increasing representation in our government. He
Exactly.
cares about getting more females to vote for him.
Yeah.
So like
And mhm.
it's not a one in, one out. It's just that like it shows again, like I will like bring up the same example as when we talked about like when we were comparing like the Obama influence on like
Mm.
the nomination process. This is pretty similar in the sense that like him picking a woman for like the vice president does not mean he's helping women when he has like
Yeah.
again trigger warning sexual assault allegations against him. Like he is
Mhm.
not
Exactly.
the person that is like protecting women, helping them, increasing representation, increasing rights and things like that.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah, I mean,
him
it's like
saying
it's
he
like
will
the
pick a
same thing.
VP, it's like him trying to like
Yeah.
mask over all the things he's done wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's not right person or not. It's like you're just trying to make yourself look better when you don't actually
Because
care.
like, I mean, yeah, he's doing the same exact thing with African Americans, right? With using
Mhm.
Obama to garner votes. So yeah, I mean, I
Yep.
definitely see that. I mean, I didn't realize it. I mean, till you pointed it out. I mean, it is kind of weird and gross that he just like pledged off right away. Like that didn't come to my mind, but I mean, yeah, definitely that makes sense. I agree.
I
I mean,
think
Annabelle, you
that's
have anything else to add?
Yeah, like, so truly, like, if you want me to vote for you, if you want a woman to vote for you, if you want, someone of said race to vote for you, you need to show that you're actually connecting to them and advocating for things that they want. You need to listen to them. And so,
Mhm.
like, when Biden's just gonna be saying that, "I'm gonna pick a woman VP, so women vote for me," just shows exactly that he's not
Hmm.
gonna be listening to the people, he's just gonna try to garner their votes and then not listen to them in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
doesn't actually show me that he cares.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It just shows me that
For
he
sure.
wants to seem like he cares.
I mean, that's what the political thing has become. It's just that's what all candidates are doing now.
Mhm.
It's just you're trying to appeal to a certain group of people to just get votes, and once they become president, I mean, who's going to expect them to actually do anything that they promised? Sometimes,
Mhm.
Exactly.
So yeah, definitely, I feel that. Anything else you guys want to add to his last
Um,
question?
I don't know, I think
Nothing. It was kind of fun. It was kind of like I was like telling Annabelle about this earlier, but it's kind of like our last debate because we don't get to debate
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
anymore. So it was fun to like talk about something together one last time.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
guys actually came on. That was
Yeah,
that
thank you
was
for
great. You
having
guys
Yeah,
are
it
great.
was pretty
us.
fun.
Yeah, for
It was
sure.
like
I mean,
nice
it was
to be able
really
to do something like work related. Like I like did some research, caught up on some stuff and things like that. So it was like
Exactly.
nice to have something to
yeah.
do.
I mean, same here. It's just keeping me busy with all this research and thinking of questions, like just something to do to take up
Mhm.
my all this extra time. I
Yeah.
mean, it was really nice to hear you guys' perspectives, and I'm
Yeah.
sure the people who are listening today, learned something new, or got introduced to maybe some new ideas that they didn't know about before. I know I definitely did.
Mhm.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to the debate clubs,
Yes.
wherever you guys,
Mhm.
yes, and wherever the people who are listening are from. If you're a high schooler or probably even in college, there's a high chance that they have a debate club. This club, I know Shreya and Annabelle are both in it, and it offers students an amazing chance to go at the debate world and help your writing and speaking skills improve. Shreya, Annabelle, you guys want to say something about it, like a quick shout out?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, truly, those who are interested, I mean, we're graduating, but like, I think both me and Shrey can agree that like debate has just really taught me the nuances of policies, whether it's domestic or international. It's also just
Mhm.
led me to be more informed, and it's also given me like a great family. Like, everyone who's on the debate team, all my freshmen, sophomore, and junior
I miss you guys.
underclassmen, we miss you guys, and
Yeah.
we hope that you continue doing our team proud, and we will be, as
Mhm.
we're in college, we'll be on the sidelines cheering for you guys.
Yeah.
That's
And if there's
awesome.
one thing that debate taught me, it's that to always stay educated, to always stay on top of your things.
Yes.
So I think that's important in and out of clubs. So
Mhm.
like be ready to answer questions, be ready to like speak up and represent your own opinions.
Yes. And for everybody who's listening, if you are worried that you're not politically educated, like they just said, debate is a great place to get started, get in and just start learning about different topics and things, because you'll probably debate them at tournaments and things like that.
Mhm.
So finally, speaking of the listeners, I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day and to listen. and help bridge that political divide, because that's the goal of this podcast, is to bring people closer from either from different perspectives to come talk and understand each other's points of views. So yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to our next podcast, which will be next Monday, where we will be tackling India's, how are they handling the coronavirus and what steps that they are taking to keep their citizens safe. So that'll be released next week on Monday. So stay tuned for another awesome guest and great discussion. Until then, thank you, and I'll see you guys all next week.